There was times like we would be making the bed and I would want to play with her a little bit and she would push me away, or she'd be trying to get dressed and she would push me away. And even in the kitchen when she's doing something at the kitchen sink and I would again be pushed away. And I wanted more out of her. I wanted the attention from her and I wasn't getting it.
Okay, so I did look at your institutional progress report, the packet that you filled out prior to this hearing. And you did comment about the same thing, that you were in a dark place. Your wife wouldn't have anything to do with you. You went outside the marriage seeking adult women, but that eventually didn't seem to be enough. So so I'm curious, what caused that jump from being with an adult female to justifying potentially getting sex from an 11-year-old?
Heard one excuse, you've heard it all. This wouldn't be the first time that we've seen someone blame their wife for why they all of a sudden went after little ones. Now this man was given his sentence in 2020, a 100-year sentence, but we know better now. We know that the sentencing in Utah, it's just a gimmick. Now up for parole 5 years later, and let's see how he handles this hearing. Let's see how Utah views this man as a risk to the public. I'll share the results with you at the end.
On May 14th, 2019, you answered 2 ads on Craigslist placed by an ICAC undercover agent posing as a female going by the name of Karen. Karen discussed her 11-year-old daughter, telling you she was looking for someone to teach her daughter. You were told multiple times her daughter was 11 years old and in the 5th grade. You stated she was pretty young, but pursued the conversation. You agreed to meet up with payment for the 11-year-old to give you oral sex. You told Karen if the child did a good job and followed directions, you would pay her $60. During this time, you also spoke with another ICAC agent who was posing as the 11-year-old child. During that call, you discussed with the child her giving you oral sex, and you expressed wanting to touch her body all over. You met with Karen at a park in Provo. When you arrived, you met with that ICAC agent and was arrested. You had $60 in your pocket with a note attached stating, "I hope your dreams come true." During your interview with the agents, you admitted to sending the emails to Karen, discussing over the phone the arrangement to pay $60 for the child to give you oral sex. Is there anything I missed or anything that you'd like to clarify?
No, you pretty well got it.
Okay. So I just have some questions about this crime. Have you ever done this before?
No.
Okay. And what caused you to actually attempt to follow through with this by meeting the agent at the park?
Well, it's a long story, and it starts going back to my wife. There was many times at home with my wife that I now realize that she was pushing me away, and I wanted more out of her, and I wasn't getting it. And I now know that the avenue I took was wrong. But there was times like we would be making the bed and I would want to play with her a little bit and she would push me away, or she'd be trying to get dressed and she would push me away. And even in the kitchen when she's doing something at the kitchen sink and I would again be pushed away. And I wanted more out of her. I wanted the attention from her and I wasn't getting it. So pornography was where I went, and one thing led to another. And I answered the ad on Craigslist for this Karen woman.
Okay, so I did look at your institutional progress report, the packet that you filled out prior to this hearing. And you did comment about the same thing, that you were in a dark place. Your wife wouldn't have anything to do with you. You went outside the marriage seeking adult women, but that eventually didn't seem to be enough. So so I'm curious, what caused that jump from being with an adult female to justifying potentially getting oral sex from an 11-year-old?
Well, I really don't have a straight answer for that, except for I wanted more. And it's hard to find a woman, like in a bar or a park or wherever, that I could be with. And I found this ad on Craigslist, So I thought, well, I'll give this a try.
Okay, I'm just writing down what you said, so bear with me.
Yeah. Looking back, you know, I am ashamed, and I wish I wouldn't have done these things.
Okay, so the question went out of my head. Bear with me here. Let me find it. Okay, so the next question I had about this offense, of course, there weren't any actual victims.
Right.
Luckily, it was agents. But if it really was an 11-year-old and you did meet up with the mother, were you putting any thought into the long-term damage you could have done to that child? Did that occur to you at all?
Honestly, no, it didn't. It should have, because I have 2 daughters, but it didn't. My daughters are grown now, and one of them's 30 and one of them is 26. I should have thought about it, but I didn't.
Okay. Now I'm going to go over this sex offender treatment memo that you received. It looks like it was completed on January 10th of last year. The recommendation was addressing current risk, evidence-based assessments, place Mr. Holmberg in the low risk range for reoffense. As a result, Mr. Holmberg's not recommended for treatment while incarcerated, as his level of risk is identified. Risk and identified treatment needs would be more appropriately addressed in a community setting. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, so if the board, which they will, order sex offender treatment, are you willing to participate in that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you talking like aftercare?
No, I'm talking about sex offender treatment if you're given a parole
Oh,
in the community.
yeah. I know that as aftercare. I'm sorry.
No,
Yes.
it's okay. Aftercare usually occurs after you complete sex offender treatment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No,
Yes.
that's okay. So you're okay participating in that? You'd be willing to do it?
Yes.
Okay. So let's look at what you've done since you've been back in custody. I have in 2020, you completed MRT and victim impact. 2022, life skills, thinking errors, alcohol, drug education. 2023, life skills, impact of crime, and Kane County Substance Abuse Treatment Program, which Department of Corrections submitted you for a time cut on completion of substance abuse treatment. The board acknowledged it. I do want to let you know that part of the board's decision after this hearing will include them considering that time cut in regards to completing that program, okay?
Thank you.
All right, so since you have taken substance abuse treatment, what was your drug of choice?
I really didn't have one. I haven't done drugs at all in my life. So if I have
Okay.
to pick one, I would have to say I've done some drinking, but nothing that was hard.
Okay, I saw in your IPR you noted you drank beer for like since you were 18, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had beer, but and I've had a few mixed drinks, but I've never really been out on a binge or been an alcoholic.
Okay, so do you think that alcohol is going to be an issue if you're released?
No, not at all.
Okay, and so out of taking the MRT, victim impact, all of these other classes, what have you learned that you didn't consider before that may be helpful if you're released?
The ability to listen and find out what's wrong in myself. You know, using my wife as an example, there was many times that I didn't listen to her. And I think that may have been the beginning of the downfall with my marriage and going down this dark road. I'm almost at a loss as to why I did this. I do know that since coming in, I have found the Lord, and my two brothers that I talk to on the phone every week and every month, they encourage me, and they are also with the Lord. The brother that's in Michigan is my biggest support, and he has jumped in and he's helped me not only financially, but he flew here from Michigan and picked up my personal items and took them back to Michigan with him. I hope to do an interstate compact. But the biggest thing I've learned is taking into consideration of other people, not my whims, not my wants, but what do other people need and what do the other people want.
Okay. And I know when you told me about this crime and you brought it up again, your wife, how much blame are you putting on her for this?
I don't know, maybe 50%. I never thought about, how much blame to put on her. I know she had something to do with my reacting, but I do not blame her for wanting a divorce and going through the divorce. I don't blame her at all. I don't blame my children for disowning me, and I understand that too. And I do hope that someplace in the future I can reconnect with my kids.
Okay, so the reason I asked you that is that has come up, your now ex-wife, in what you wrote in your institutional report, what you've told me. And it is a little concerning because I don't think your wife told you to try to have oral sex with an 11-year-old.
No, she did
You
not.
see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
And so I was just curious how much of the blame you're taking for ending up where you are. And from what you've told me, it's half.
I do take full responsibility for what I've done. There are things that my wife did during the marriage that I now realize that I wish she would have talked to me about. And that probably would have stopped a lot of these criminal actions. But I think that's kind of like looking in a hindsight, but I don't know. I don't know where she's at now. I don't talk to her at all. But I don't blame her for my actions.
Okay. So considering you've been sentenced to life ×2, they're running back to back. Why should the board grant you a release at this point?
The biggest reason is because of my connection with the Lord God. He saved me, is what he did. As I laid on the bed when I was still in Tooele County, I asked him to come into my heart and clean out the trash, and he did. I don't know exactly what happened, but it felt like I was levitated off the bed. I know I got a warm, hot feeling in my chest that worked down past my heart and into my abdomen. And when it was over with, I was convinced that Jesus actually was a God that came to earth. And I immediately started reading the Bible and reading some of the excerpts that are in Peter and Paul, and reading a lot of the do's and don'ts about marriage. Her responsibility, his responsibility, and things like man should not lay with man, and then incest. And I've gotten to the point that I really do have a fear of God now. I wake up in the morning wondering, who can I help today? I know I'm in the jail, and there's the help that I can give other people is kind of limited, but I still help where I can. And that's something that I want to do when I get out, is I want to be part of my brother's church, and I want to help those who I can. I have a mechanical ability in my past that I still have. And so to be able to help somebody financially to repair brakes or shocks or that type of thing, I can do for them. I've learned a lot with mechanical, and like replacing windshields. I can replace engines and transmissions, and all these things are very expensive for a lot of people. That is my biggest help. I also learned how to crochet while I was in here, and knowing how to crochet can be a big help. I've done a lot of crochet work for an ex-inmate named Johnny Gardner, who sends in yarn to have different projects made. And I've done a number of things for him, and I'm told that he gives them all to the hospital kids.
Mhm.
I am deeply ashamed of my actions. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's talk about if the board decides to grant you a release. You mentioned that you want to do an interstate compact. From what I've gathered, just reading your paperwork and the letters that have come in, is that you plan to move to Michigan, live with your brother and his wife as they have an apartment on his property. Is that correct?
Yes, it's an attached to the backside of his house. It's what they call a mother-in-law apartment.
Okay. And then we received a letter stating that you have a job waiting at your niece's cleaning company. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, she's.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
She's 45 years old. She has 2 kids. They're both grown, and her little business is called Done Deal. And she does offices. I don't know if she does banks or not. I know she has a library that she cleans. She has a couple factories, and then she says every year she tries to do a couple hoarder houses. And she realizes that there's places I cannot go. Yeah, she knows this. She knows I cannot go into homes or a hoarder house. She knows that I would be restricted to offices and factories. She has helped a lot of inmates upon them getting release. I don't have a clue as to how many, but she has told me that she realizes that there's things that I can't do, and so she knows which direction I can go in.
So you're going to do the cleaning in the offices?
It would be offices and factories, break room,
Okay.
things like that.
All right. And then do you have any idea about where treatment would be available for you in Michigan for sex offender treatment?
I do have a vague idea. From where my brother lives, he says that the Board of Pardons is about 15, 20 minutes away. And it's my understanding that there's a facility right next door for the treatment.
Okay. And I did note that you've already paid the fee to apply for the interstate compact. You just are waiting for a date, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Since you've been in custody, have you had to work with mental health at all?
A little bit with the therapist, Guy. I don't know Guy's last name.
No, it's okay.
Only with Guy. I had CBI with a guy named Robert or Rob. So we went through CBI, and I had a couple sit downs with Guy with things that was going on. And I can't say he straightened me out, but he gave me advice as what to do. And his advice helped me a lot.
Okay. Are you on any medication?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And if you were asked to rate your mental health at this point, what would you say it was?
I would say it's very good.
Okay. And do you have any physical issues that would get in the way of you completing parole successfully?
Physically? No, none.
Okay. All right. So, sir, that's about all I have. Is there anything else that you want to tell me to pass on to the board?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
I've never had a problem finding work. And I do also at the same time with working with my niece. My brother's going to help me get my driver's license back, which means my CDL, so I can go back to driving truck.
And when you drove truck, was that local or interstate?
Well, when I first started, I was over the road, all over the place,
Mhm.
and then that particular truck gave me a lot of problems, so I stopped going over the road and I took a job driving locally. So that way I would be home every night and I didn't have the responsibility of trying to keep the truck repaired. And that's what I want to do when I get to Michigan is nothing but local. That way I am
Okay.
home every night. I also know that there are many shifts for driving truck. Everything where you start from like 3 to 5 in the morning to starting at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And that I would have to put on hold until I got the therapy and the classes lined out first. And I understand. Um, uh, I look forward to being at home with my brother. He is my twin, and I want to spend as much time as I can with him before one of us passes away. Our father passed away when he was 71, and I am almost 66 now.
Okay, so just by an off chance, if Utah or Michigan decide to deny your interstate compact, which it does happen sometimes, what would you do if you had to stay in Utah?
I think I would spend probably the first year in a halfway house, and
Okay.
I'm not real sure where that's at. And I'd have to figure out how to get around because I don't have a car. So I'm thinking it would probably be by bus
Okay.
to go, and that would take me down to Medicare and to the therapy offices. And I don't know where to go for registry of my offense in Michigan or Utah. And then I would continue to try and get my license back, so I have some ID, so maybe I can go back to driving truck locally.
Okay.
I guess a lot of it depends on where I'm at in Utah.
Right.
You know, um, I've spent the last 25 years in Moab, so Salt Lake City has changed a lot for me.
Yeah, it has. We have halfway houses in Weber, Salt Lake, and a new one in Utah County.
Oh,
So
if
go ahead.
if I was to go to Utah County, my last job before coming in was with SUV, and that's Southern Utah Valley Waste Disposal, and that was in just outside of Springville. And I don't know if the board's got a letter of recommendation from SUV or not, but I did get a nice recommendation from him. So possibilities of going back to work for him are high.
I think I did see that in there. I'll double check and point that out to the board. So is there anything else that you need to tell me?
No, I
Okay.
tried to be patient and wait for this interview. I've got no write-ups. I've got no infractions. And it's in my hearing papers or someplace that I've been
Yeah.
working a laundry job for almost 2 years.
Okay. So let me finish it. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take everything we discussed here today, submit it to the board in form of a report. In the next 30 days, you'll find out from the board their decision. It'll come to you either through your caseworker or in inmate mail. At that time, if you are granted a release, the notification you receive from the board will include your release date along with any special conditions of parole. I advise you pay special attention to the conditions. If by some chance the board decides not to grant you a release, you'll receive that information as well. So at this time, do you have any questions for me?
What's your recommendation?
I do not tell people. We normally don't provide them. The reason is because if I told you I'm recommending you are released in 9 months and the board comes back with a different date, it creates a lot of confusion, not only for you, but if you have any family or friends watching. So we just stopped doing that because
Okay.
of the confusion. But I will submit it to the board. Go ahead.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll submit it to the board, and you should find out in the next few weeks what's going to happen, okay?
Okay.
All right, sir. At this time, I am going to conclude the hearing, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
If you're new to this channel, you might be shocked. Utah granted. Not only did they grant, but they actually write in the documents that they consider him to be such a low risk. He is such a low risk of reoffending that he does not need to take sex offender programs while locked up. You can't make it up. This is the truth. This is what's happening in Utah. And we've seen this happen time and time and time again. They have run out of program facilitators. They don't know what to do. They can't wait to release these dangerous criminals back into society. So they actually go out of their way to say, well, you're actually a low risk to reoffend. And they use the static 99 risk score assessment thing that all 50 states in America use to make that assessment. See, they pass on the responsibility to this program, which was developed in the 90s by a Canadian and an Englishman and developed for them to profit. They make money teaching the Department of Corrections how to use their brilliant program. Anyways, we've gone over that so many times. We're about to see another parole hearing of another monster. I would say you're not going to believe how shocking his crimes are, but then again, you probably will believe it. Utah is dangerous. Can you even imagine that he sits there and he blames his wife? Even today, 5 years after his crime, he says that his wife is 50% responsible because, she wasn't giving him action. So then he went to the 11. He went there with that note. I hope you achieve everything in your life. Can you even imagine? Then he has his ridiculous story. Jesus came into my body. I felt it. Yeah, I think it was probably something else you were feeling. Disgusting. And in his mind, he thinks, man, I did it. I'm the manipulator. I am good. I am good. I can just go out there. Yeah, she listened to me. Yeah, I mean, all it was reinforcing of his insanity. At least his children and his wife disowned him. We have too often seen where that's not the case. And thank you, Sir Richard, for putting this in the documents here. We're about to see another crazy hearing. And thank you, Holly, for working on this as well. It was a teamwork thing. So anyways, let's jump in.
I'm just going to summarize what happened in this commitment. Your 15-year-old daughter reported to her therapist that you had molested her from ages 7 to 12 years old. DCFS was contacted and a forensic interview was completed. During the interview, the victim reported you using her from the time she was 7 years old until around 12 or 13 years of age. She also reported that you took nude photos of her when she was 7 years old while you were living in California. A detective met with you. You denied the allegations, and at that point, St. George PD placed you under arrest. Is there anything that you want to add or clarify about that summary I just read to you?
No, ma'am, that's accurate.
Okay. What do you want to tell me about these crimes?
First off, I want to say that I'm remorseful for what I did, and a day doesn't go by where I don't think about what I did to her and how it's affected her. And I know sorry doesn't help, it doesn't change things, but I'm truly sorry in the bottom of my heart, and I wish I could take back what I did. I'm doing the program. Program's been very helpful to me. It's helped me find new ways to cope with life's problems. It's helped me to feel and understand empathy. not just for her, but for everybody. So I think the program's really good. And that's all I have to say
Okay.
right now.
Now, is this the first time you did something like this?
I did, back in 2003, I tried to meet up with a 13-year-old girl on the internet, and it turned out to be a sting operation. So I got a 0 to 5, but they stayed the sentence, and I just did 2 months in jail, and then I had 3 years of not parole, probation.
Okay. So what do you think brought you to doing this? First, it was a 13-year-old girl, and then your own child.
I think I had a lot of personal problems, a lot of self-esteem issues, just unhealthy coping ways to cope with things, addictions.
What kind of addictions?
I had an addiction to porn, a gambling addiction, that I would use these things to escape from life's problems. It was an escape for me. It was a way to shut myself out and to numb myself.
And I know you've mentioned a couple times the victim. When you were committing these crimes on your daughter, were you considering the long-term damage it was going to obviously do to her?
No, I was not.
Do you know why that would be?
Because I was being selfish. I was only thinking of myself. I wasn't thinking about her. Wasn't thinking about the consequences for her or for anybody. I was just thinking about what felt good at the moment.
Okay, so did you receive in your blue packet a copy of your sex offense treatment summary report?
The letter that Guy Finnegan wrote.
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I'm just going to review the recommendation. It says that it is recommended that Mr. Berry first complete his current treatment program. When the time comes for release into the community, it will be important that Mr. Berry receive both clinical and supervisory report in the implementation, adaptation, and maintenance of his success plan. It also states the concerns are that you hope to release to a friend's home in Cache County where there may be an on-site truck driving job available where he hopes to work until he can renew his CDL. Whenever Mr. Berry ends up living, it will be important that he effectively engage in his success plan, which will include aftercare, social support, along with solid behavioral plans and interventions with to deal with high-risk situations. Do you agree with that recommendation and the concerns?
I do agree with it.
Okay, so if the board did order sex offender treatment upon your release or aftercare, do you agree to participate in that?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. All right, so from what I gathered from your institutional progress report and also the reports from corrections, you do plan on at least working in a truck yard until you get your CDL back. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. The job I have lined up, it's in the truck yard, and it's just shuttling trailers to and back and forth from the from their yard to the plant. It's a dairy
Okay.
plant.
And then tell me, who is it that you're planning on living with? I think you wrote a friend in Logan.
Yeah, it's he's actually in here in the program right now. He's releasing next week. And he actually works at the dairy plant.
Mm,
So he's the one who's lined that job up for me. And he said he has an extra room that he could rent.
okay. Do you think it's a good idea to be living with another sex offender that just got out of prison?
Actually I do because my therapist told me, he says that we most likely would be in the same aftercare group and that we could be each other's support. And he is in my support group on my success plan.
Okay. And then in your institutional progress report, the packet that you filled out, you listed some names of people that could be a support to you in the community. Who are those people? Are
These
those all friends?
they're all people I'm in the program with. And we're
Okay.
all in the same group. And so we've all agreed that when we get out, we would be each other's support. And that if we need somebody, that we're there for them.
Okay. And then you also listed some state agencies that could provide some support, like Department of Workforce Services, and some let me find it. Department of Workforce Services, Aftercare, and the LDS Church. So what do you plan to seek from them? Because you have this support group from people who just got out of prison. So what can these agencies provide to you?
The Department of Workforce Services, I believe that they could help me obtain my CDL, and if not, they could point me to the direction I need to go. Probably through voc rehab or one of those departments.
Okay, did you have your CDL? You did prior to your arrest.
But it's lapsed, so it's
Mhm.
expired, and I'll have to
Okay, got it. And then keep going.
The church, I hope to find a good adult ward and meet some new friends in that area, and have a good support system through there.
Okay, and is there any other people or places that you could go for support if you find yourself struggling?
My father, but
Okay.
he's 95. So
And where does he live?
he lives in St. George.
Okay.
And then I have a brother who lives in St. George as well.
Okay. Are you in contact with them?
I call my dad every week, a couple times a week, but my brother will send an occasional email back and forth.
Okay. All right. And let's look at the treatment that you've completed so far. So let's see, you completed in 2021 MRT. You graduated from high school. The board did receive the request for a time cut from Department of Corrections. When you did that, the board did acknowledge it, and they will consider high school graduation and that request now when they're making their decision from this hearing. You also completed SOTP pre and pre-treatment life skills in 2024, and you're currently in SOTP and SOTP therapy groups. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you're currently, your sentence, your life top. This is your second offense. conviction that's regarding a sex offense. Your victim in this case is your child. So why should the board consider you for parole at this point versus keeping you in prison for the rest of your life?
I believe that I've made a lot of progress since I've come to prison. I still have a lot more progress to make. It's a never-ending journey. But I believe that I would actually be of more use out there, and if given a chance for parole, be allowed to prove myself again, that I can be a functioning member of society.
Okay. And the only thing that's kind of jumping out to me is the support that you've listed, and the people that you want to hang out with are people that you are currently going through treatment with. Now, of course, they do offer a level of support, and that's what your therapist said. On the other hand, if one of them relapses, starts participating in illegal activity in regards to violating their parole agreement by engaging in contacting minors or looking at pornography online, using drugs, how do you think you're going to be able to avoid being sucked into that? Because a lot of the time, associates are what people are coming back here for, because they're influenced by the people around them.
I would, if that was the case, I would bring it to their attention, and if it continued, if I know if they were in my group, I would bring it up in group, to the therapist's attention, and I would stop associating with that person.
Okay. Okay, so it looks like in something we haven't addressed, because this is your first hearing, January of 2024, you did have a disciplinary. It was for having 185 loose heartburn pills in your property. Tell me what went on with that.
Okay, that was, so some days I take them, and other days I don't need them. So I would save them just in case I do need them. Because at the time, there was problems with getting refills on my medication. I'd have to wait a week or two. And when you have heartburn, you have to wait for your medication. It's not the most pleasant thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a backup for me. So I made sure I always had my heartburn pills.
Okay, so were you prescribed these pills?
I was.
Okay. What was the outcome of the disciplinary? Did you lose levels? Did you have to pay a fine, or what happened with that?
The outcome was that I just had a week with I couldn't do movement for a week.
Okay.
I was restricted to the section. That was the only outcome.
Okay. Now, is there anything else that you want to tell me about these, your commitment offenses, about what you've done in prison, or your plans for release that we haven't covered yet?
So I again want to say that I'm sorry for what I did. I feel bad about it. I feel bad for her, what it's done to her. I'm just taking what I've learned, what I'm learning in the program, what I have learned already, and I plan to apply that. I'm not only learning how to cope and how to see people differently. I'm learning warning signs, and so that this never happens again. And like I said, my plan is just to get back to work and to get on my feet and to do my aftercare and be successful on my parole and be successful in my life.
Okay, so sir, here's what's going to happen. Going to take everything we discussed here today and submit it to the board along with all the documentation that we already have. In the next 30 days or so, the board will determine whether or not to grant you a parole. If you are given a parole, you'll receive the decision in inmate mail. It'll come to you either that route or through a caseworker. In the decision, you'll find out the date of release along with any special conditions. I would place special attention to those conditions of parole. If the board decides to continue this hearing and see you again somewhere down the road or up until your life sentence, you'll find that out as well. It'll come in an envelope through either the inmate mail or your caseworker, and you'll find out either way if you get a release or if we're going to do something different and keep you in custody. Do you have any questions about that?
I don't.
Okay, so at this time, I am going to just wish you luck, and I'll conclude this hearing. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And can you take a guess? I don't think it'd be very hard to guess that.
You
Utah
just can't make
granted
this
they
stuff up.
granted
How
him
is it possible?
I'm just going to vent, okay? But how is it possible that someone can do something like this to their biological daughter for years and you only get 6 years of your 100-year sentence? It's not just me that feels this way. It's the majority of us. How many of you watching say, yeah, that's a good decision? That makes sense. Let's release a monster his exit plan so that he can spend time with other monsters. Birds of a feather flock together. Roaches, they scurry together. They live together. They plot together. They fantasize with each other. What do you think they're going to be doing? This is just, it's madness. And this is why we do this, because I don't think that the majority of us here in the world, in America, in our sitting watching this say, this is normal. This is good. This makes sense. You get more time for selling pot. You get more time for so many crimes. Tax evasion. God dang, you'd be there for at least a decade. But you do this to children, a multi-time offender, and these are just the times that he's caught. If you think he is caught 100% of the time, then you could probably make a good parole board member or a good legislator. Great in politics. A judge or a DA. You'd fit right in. And this is not an outlier. This is not an anomaly. We have spreadsheets of Utah hearings. Every time you hear me say thank you, let me share with you. This hearing took place 1/2/2025. Their decision to parole him, 1/14/2025 was the decision. Sorry, effective June 17, 2025. He's got 3 more months left. Every red highlight that you see here is someone who's done a horrible sex offense. And the spreadsheet goes down. You see all the red? All the red. Look at that. Think about that. This is only the state of Utah. They grant almost all of them. These are sex offenders that are doing the worst. They are the few that get caught that get prosecuted, that have to serve prison time, but then they are released right back into society. How does that make any sense? We know that they are not cured. We know that they are still a risk to reoffend, even though the static 99 calls them a low risk, which it's all, that is one of the biggest scams, in my opinion, happening in society. All 50 states use the static 99 risk score assessment, which was created in the 90s by two men who sell their services to teach the department how to use it. It was created before the iPhone was ever made, more than a decade before the iPhone. You know, in the static 99 risk score, if you turn 60 years old, you start with -3 points. And the way that the score works is that the lowest score you have, the better, the lower risk you have. So when they believe when you turn 60, you are a low risk. And then what it means is now you have to play catch up. So in order to get 3+ points, you have to get 6 points. So according to that, if you turn 60 and you have victims like your own daughter as a victim, having a victim as your own daughter only counts for 2 points. So you would still be a -1. You would still be an extremely low risk. That's how it works. I'm not making this stuff up. I covered it plenty of times. Just Google it. I'm gonna keep venting because I think that I'm preaching what all of us are feeling. It comes down to just the most basic logic. If you were to show this to 100 people, maybe one, because you always, that's just the way the math works, will say, yeah, that's okay. So when you think about that, how is it possible that they're releasing them? How is it possible that the minority, that 1%, is making the decision against consensus, against the other 99%, against common sense? You know, there are 3 reasons for locking someone up. I learned this from hearing this often from my favorite Mr. Roche out of Louisiana. He says, there's rehabilitation, there's protection to protect the public from the person, and then there's a third: retribution, punishment. How can you possibly think that 6 years is enough punishment for altering the life of your own child? There are plenty of offenders that would say, you know what? If I can have 1, 2, 3, 4 years of fulfilling my roach-like fantasies, maybe it's worth doing 6 years behind bars. It's not so bad. I'll hang out with other people who are like-minded. They can share their fantasies with me. I'll get 3 meals a day. Believe me, the whole stuff you hear about how it's dangerous in prison, it's not. There are situations. Being jail might be more dangerous. Once you go to prison, they do a pretty good job at putting you with other roaches. Every once in a while you hear a story, but it's not like what you think. He's hanging out with his buddies who've done the same thing. They're sharing stories. I hear this from CEOs all the. They are these. You're talking about people whose brains, they are not like us. But the system put in charge of protecting us, they have other agendas. They have other problems. They are being run. They say, well, our prison's full. We need to create more space for the guy who's selling, pot. We need to create more space for the person who's forging checks. We need to create more space for the purse snatchers. So let's let out those that, it's just children. So we don't care that much. Besides, the chances of them getting caught again, it won't come back to bite us, because it all plays in together, because the DAs, when a case comes on their table, so Child Protective Services, so this guy gets released right back out, right? Then Child Protective Services, the guy's offending, he's doing things, he's grooming, he's doing weird things. 3 years later, CPS goes and they hear about a case, and they go to the police, and the police get a detective, and the detective brings them there, and then the whichever parent that's not there and guardian, because they're hopped up on their addiction problems, and then they go to the kid and they say, and the child already now has been threatened, and they're like, yeah, this is just difficult. We're not going to take this to trial. Our dockets are full, so they just say, let's do a plea deal. We'll say it was attempted this and this. You'll get a 6-month sanction. They don't even prosecute it. They'll just say, go in front of the revocation parole board. The parole board says, wow, it looks like you violated your parole. We'll give you a 3-month sanction. And then it doesn't go even back into the data books as a reoffense. And the cycle continues. The DOC says, look, our rehabilitation is working. I don't know what the fix is. I think that what we need is just more awareness of how this system is screwing us, how they are against common sense, releasing monsters into society, claiming that they're low risk because of a risk score, which was designed to generate profit for the creators. It's absolute, has no... People have never even seen, they did a study in the 90s that is not public, that they base their assessment on. It's that insane. Everybody knows that you don't become a lower risk when you turn 60. Yet all 50 states is using this ridiculous form. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Richard. And with that, I'll let you go.
Okay. And I know when you told me about this crime and you brought it up again, your wife, how much blame are you putting on her for this?
I don't know, maybe 50%. I never thought about, how much blame to put on her. I know she had something to do with my reacting.
Using her from the time she was 7 years old until around 12 or 13 years of age. She also reported that you took photos of her when she was 7 years old while you were living in California. A detective met with you, you denied the allegations, and at that point, St. George PD placed you under arrest.